Hi there, this is Al24 News live from Algiers. Coming up next in our news program. In an open talk with Palestinian President, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune states, "We have decided to host a meeting for all Palestinian factions plus." In our news file, we'll be discussing with our political experts what might be the outcomes of the awaited US-Russia video conference. And finally, Russia has begun the deliveries of long-range S-400 missile defense system to India, despite Washington's threat of sanctions. Today marks the last day of Palestinian President's visit to Algeria, and during his visit he discussed the developments of the Palestinian cause and mainly the preparation of the next summit of the Arab League in March 2022 with the Abdelmajid Tebboune and his government.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received Monday in Algiers the President of the State of Palestine, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, who was warmly welcomed on his arrival, which reflects the close relations between the two brotherly countries. Abdelmajid Tebboune revealed that Algeria is preparing to host the Arab League Summit in March 2022 and is seeking to put the Palestinian cause at the center of the priorities of this important event.
We see that it is crucial to promote Arab joint action in our central primary cause and unify our position to support the Palestinian people. This is why we're preparing to host the Arab Summit and put Palestinian issue in its core priorities. And we hope it will be an all-inclusive summit that will create a new start for the joint Arab action.
Announcing at the same time a financial contribution of $100 million to the Palestinian National Authority and the allocation of 300 scholarships for Palestinian students in Algerian universities. The President of the Republic affirmed that Algeria wants to put an end to Arab divisions and splits, hoping the Algiers summit can unify Arabs.
Algerian state decided to give you $100 million as a participation for the Palestinian state budget.
And as stated by the official Palestinian news agency, Abbas briefed Tebboune on the latest political developments related to the Palestinian issue and the occupation practices that undermine the chances of peace and the two-state solution. On this occasion, the Palestinian president thanked President Tebboune and Algerian diplomacy for their important role in supporting the Palestinian cause in international forums, in particular within the African Union, stressing the importance of continuing coordination between the two countries.
Our Palestinian people express to Algeria, its people, leadership and political powers sincere appreciation and feelings of devotions.
And as stated by the Presidency of the Republic, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas awarded the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Great Medal of Palestine. The Palestinian news agency remarked that the medal was a sign of appreciations of Tebboune's distinguished position and wise leadership at the national, Arab and international levels and in supporting the Palestinian people and their just cause.
And following Algeria's position and the support of the President of the Republic, many Palestinian citizens and political figures reacted to the support of Algeria to the just Palestinian cause. Let's have a listen.
It is an honored invitation that we respect and we reaffirm Hamas' steadfast position in achieving the national Palestine unification to block the road of obstacle that the Palestinian cause faces. Algerian President Tebboune's invitation comes in the meantime. We decided to reorganize all our internal affairs. We consider this call as a step to the right path, and we call all the Palestinians to accept the invitation that may be an initiative to put an end to the division and to restore the internal unity needless to mention the deplored efforts by other countries in favor of our state. From here we are certain that the Algerian role is very important and the Palestinian factions respect Algeria. We hope thereby that this meeting will be fruitful and different from other ones.
During a special visit of all 24 news cameras to the Embassy of South Africa accredited to the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, Chargé d'Affaires Dr. Selo Patrick Rancamus had this to say regarding the celebration of the 8th death anniversary of Nelson Mandela.
The celebration of the passing of Nelson Mandela is a key moment in terms of the international struggle against racism, inequality, and exploitation, because President Nelson Mandela sacrificed part of his life in the fight against apartheid in South Africa. And we should remember that it was during the fight against apartheid that solidarity countries, including Algeria, played an important role in terms of ensuring that freedom and liberation in South Africa is achieved. And it is from this experience that the world today is pushing for a fight against racism in all its form and manifestation. And we should also take time as we celebrated the passing of Nelson Mandela to recall how Algeria played a key role in terms of its support to the liberation struggle in South Africa. We have seen that when Mandela was released, Algeria was one of the first countries that he visited to say thank you for the contribution that Algeria has made in the liberation of South Africa. And that served as the basis for the strong bilateral and political relations between South Africa and Algeria in the post-apartheid era.
This visit coincided with an aid campaign launched by the Embassy of South Africa, accredited to the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, which would last until next March in support of young Sahrawi children in Tindouf refugee camps to achieve their rights to study, just like any other children around the world.
The Embassy of South Africa in Algeria is also accredited to the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. And as part of our diplomatic engagement with Western Sahara, the Sahrawi people, we are in solidarity supporting the people and the government of Western Sahara in its quest for liberation, in its quest for territorial integrity and independence. It is for that reason that we as the mission conduct regular visits to the camps to see firsthand what is going on in the camps, and also to get an inside understanding of the plight of the Sahrawi people. In addition, we also encourage a working visit by our principals to the camps. Recently, Minister Naledi Pandor visited the camps as part of the South Africa solidarity with the people and the government of Western Sahara. And as the mission, we have since last year initiated a people-to-people support program wherein we are collecting voluntary contributions from individuals in a form of educational support material.
With the growing tensions between Russia and Ukraine, the EU and US are considering hard-hitting sanctions on the Russian economy if Moscow orders an invasion of Ukraine. In recent weeks, multiple American media organizations have suggested that Russia is planning a military incursion into Ukraine. Zahra Farjani reports.
Ukraine has accused Russia of massing tens of thousands of troops near its border, raising the prospect of open war between the two neighbors. Ukraine's President Zelensky said his armed forces were capable of fighting off any Russian attack, as the country marked its National Army Day with a display of US armored vehicles and patrol boats. US President Joe Biden has vowed his unwavering support to Ukraine in its standoff with Moscow and will hold talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin to try to resolve the crisis. According to media sources, if Moscow orders an invasion of Ukraine, the EU and US would consider hard-hitting sanctions targeting major Russian banks, as well as Russian Direct Investment Fund, Moscow's Sovereign Wealth Fund, and may also attempt to make it harder for investors to buy Russian debt on the secondary market. As stated in media sources, American officials are even discussing disconnecting the country from the SWIFT banking network. This would be by far the strongest sanction ever placed on Russia and would significantly affect the lives of ordinary citizens. Russia, on its behalf, ridiculed the report and suggested that it is being hyped up through the media, denying any intention to invade Ukraine. The Kremlin said that any troop movements are an internal matter and of no concern to any other country.
U.S. officials stated that President Joe Biden will hold a high-stakes video conferencing a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin later today to address the growing tensions in Ukraine. Biden had earlier consulted with European allies to discuss plans to severe economic sanctions against Russia and seek a strong allied stance in support of Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. They called on Russia to diminish tensions and return to diplomacy and said their teams will stay in close touch.
We've also been clear, and we've heard from our allies, our NATO allies including, that we believe there is an opportunity, a window before us to resolve this diplomatically, chiefly through full implementation of the Minsk agreements. That is our priority. That is where we wish to invest our efforts. At the same time, we have been clear that if Moscow shows no interest in investing in a diplomatic off-ramp, that the United States and our partners, and we heard this loud and clear from our NATO allies in Riga last week, that we would be prepared to implement measures that we have not implemented in the past. Specifically, should Russia follow this path of confrontation and military action, we have made clear to Moscow that we will respond resolutely, including with a range of what we have called high-impact economic measures that we've refrained from using in the past. And it's that last clause.
And to talk more about the latest insights regarding this, I'm joined live by Hamoud Salhi, Professor and Associate Dean of International Education from California, the USA, and at the same time, a bit later, with Ihab Abbas, US affairs expert. And let me just start with you, Hamoud, with the first question. In your opinion, what are the reasons that pushed Ukraine to escalate its speech and tone at this particular time?
Thank you, Nadia. I think it's obvious for the Ukrainian that they are after their strategic security, stability, and deterrence. They have taken actions just this year by enhancing their membership or to be a full-time membership within NATO. They have done also steps to be a permanent member of the EU. They have also military pacts with the UK, with Germany and other countries. They see Russia as a threat to their national interest, and they see the deployment of forces on their borders as an indication that the threat is imminent, or that a war is imminent from that perspective. Of course, the Russians have a different perspective. They don't want the NATO expanding further than what it is now. They also are very concerned about their borders, their national interests, their pride, and the bottom line, they want Ukraine to have no NATO forces in that country. That's why it's very important to them. A goal or a premise that contradicts that of the Ukrainian, and
Hamoud,
knowing
please,
that the two countries have difficult times.
Hamoud, please, let us just bring into our discussion Ihab Abbas, US affairs expert, who joins us via phone. Well, Abbas, what do you think are the most important resolutions that the conference will take into account?
This virtual meeting between President Biden and Putin actually come into the scene while there is a huge conflict that happens on the borders between Russia and Ukraine. As we see the Russian troops almost at the borders of Ukraine, almost 100,000 troopers there, and they could be passing into the Ukraine lands at any time. This is a huge threat to Ukraine, and from the other side to the Western countries and the United States itself. And at this point, this meeting actually probably will address, President Biden will address Putin all the concerns that the United States government has in its pocket, because this could be escalated anytime into a war that could drag the Western powers, as we see the NATO, United States, and from the other side, Russia, and maybe we'll see some new allies to Russia that got into the scene. So at this point, actually, we would like to see some sort of calming down the situation into a space that give all the whom involving into this issue a period of time to rethink what they're gonna do at the upcoming days, because any escalation could be actually starting of a third world war, when this is something I think nobody needs to see it at this time while we're fighting this pandemic that goes around the world right now. Also, the cybersecurity will be on the table to discuss between the two presidents, and the strategic relationship between the United States and Russia and some several other conflicts in the world, especially in the Middle East. So I think that this virtual meeting is a very important one that happens right now, after the one that happened in Geneva, I think was like 6 months ago, to remark the all agreements that the two parties that came up to at that point, and we will see and reassess what happened during this 6 months.
Probably we are going
to
bring this to
the United States.
Hamoud, and back to you. In case of a war, how would Russia react to the economic sanctions and face this war?
I think we are not, hopefully we're not heading into that directions. What we're heading for, particularly how the United States is behaving, rallying its allies, talking to Germany, talking to France, and the United States is rallying a collective response. At the same time, there is a threat of sanctions. On the other hand, you have the Russians who are calling for calm and appears to be the wiser country in this case, if I may. So from that perspective, I think we're heading back to where we were maybe January 22nd, when the Ukraine got permission from the NATO to enhance its membership for participating in NATO. In the case of war, for Russia, it would be more of about a sovereignty, but an attack with its national pride. And the Russians have been successful in building their internal legitimacy on the perception of existing threats. This is historically proven, whether it's real or not, but it will be a matter of using it to rally national pride on one hand. Now, the cost is very heavy in terms of sanctions, particularly where it's heading. The leverage that the Russians have is their gas pipelines, particularly the one that is now in process with Germany pipeline. The gas is very valuable to the European countries, and European countries, particularly some NATO members, may not be involved or may want to see to it that the situation does not escalate.
Thank you.
So from this perspective,
thank you so much. I might stop you there because we are just running out of time. Thank you so much, Hamoud Salhi and Ihab Abbas. You joined us both from the United States of America. And now let's move on to more news about COVID-19 around the world in this special report by Sid Islam.
According to the American Academy of Pediatricians, children accounted for more than 22% of all new COVID-19 cases in the previous week, which is considered extremely high. There have been at least 133,022 new cases among children, which is about 2,000 more than the previous week. As said by Argentina's health ministry, the Omicron variant has been detected for the first time. The first infected person lives in St. Louis and traveled to South Africa for a work event. Several hours later, the government urged citizens to use the Sputnik Light vaccine.
According to the latest data, there are now 261 confirmed cases in England,
Sajid Javid, the UK Health Secretary, announced the number of confirmed Omicron cases in the UK reached 336, an increase of 90 infections in 24 hours. There were 261 recorded cases in England, 71 in Scotland and 4 in Wales. There has been yet to be confirmed case in Northern Ireland. France has now identified 25 positive Omicron variant cases. 21 confirmed cases were discovered in people returning from South Africa, and 4 were discovered as a result of local infection. French Prime Minister Jean Castex announced a slew of new COVID measures, claiming that the virus is circulating throughout the territory and that pressure is rising in hospitals as the country grapples with an increase in infections. Thailand's Ministry of Public Health announced the country's first case of the Omicron variant in the U.S. citizen, who entered Thailand nearly a week ago. According to officials, the 35-year-old American citizen had been living in Spain for a year and was inoculated in June with a Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
And due to the fast surge of the new wave caused by the new variant Omicron, New York has imposed a general compulsory vaccine restriction, which is going to be applied on all private sectors starting from December. Sit Islam again.
According to CBS New York report starting December 27th, employers in New York City must require COVID-19 inoculations for their employees. The act goes further than President Joe Biden's nationwide requirement to vaccinate workers with more than 100 employees by January 4th, which has been halted by court bans. Vaccinations are already mandatory for city employees such as teachers, cops, and firefighters, and a vaccination mandate for private and religious school employees was announced last week. Vaccine mandates have a long history in the U.S., but have generally been issued by cities or states. As stated by New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, that the emergence of the coronavirus Omicron variant, cold winter weather, and holiday gatherings are additional challenges to tackling the virus in New York, which was hard hit by the virus in 2020, with at least 34,000 deaths.
Omicron is a new factor. We've got the colder weather, which is going to really create additional challenges with the Delta variant. We've got holiday gatherings. We in New York City have decided to use a preemptive strike to really do something bold to stop the further growth of COVID and the dangers it's causing to all of us.
New York City is seeing just under 2,000 new cases of COVID-19 per day, up from around 820 at the beginning of November. Since it was first reported in late November, at least 15 U.S. states have confirmed Omicron cases, including several in New York.
And moving on to another story, Russia has begun deliveries of long-range S-400 missile defense system to India, according to Indian Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla, despite Washington's threats of sanctions. Marwa Bilaybar.
With Russia's President Vladimir Putin on a landmark visit in India, in which both sides extended a military collaboration deal to 2013 and signed a $5.4 billion missile defense system contract, despite the possibility of sanctions from the United States. New Delhi has confirmed the deliveries of Russian S-400 missile defense systems, which caused a furious backlash from Washington. According to Indian Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla, Russia has begun the deliveries of long-range S-400 missile defense system to India. In a press briefing after a meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin at India-Russia Annual Summit in New Delhi. The Prime Minister said supplies have begun this month and will continue to happen. Washington has long tried to prevent countries from buying military equipment from Russia, threatening them with punitive measures under countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act. Yet, India moved forward with the deal despite Washington's warning that a waiver from CAATSA was unlikely, maintaining that it has strategic ties with both Russia and the US.
That's all for our news. An exclusive interview with Dr. Silo Patrick Renkamis, Chargé d'Affaires of South Africa Embassy to Algeria, accredited to the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, is up next. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.